Game day.
Welcome into another episode of Cheese Focus Live. We've got an actual game to talk about. It's been a little bit since we've done a show about a game coming up. So we're going to talk a little 49ers Chiefs coming up here on Sunday. We have unfortunate wide receiver news coming out of Chiefs practice today. So we'll get to that when we talk about the injury report. And we'll also just talk about general matchup stuffs that we are going to expect to see on Sunday. My name is Quentin Morris. We got Thiz running the show in the background, and now a man who is his ego is apparently as fragile as the Chiefs wide receiver room. It's the old man himself, JP.
What's up, buddy?
Oh man, when this came across, I don't know. I just wasn't expecting this. I guess you don't really expect to see new additions to the injury report, especially coming off a bye week. But yeah, Juju Smith-Schuster hamstring injury. Was limited in practice today. That's the big news coming out of camp, coming out of training camp.
I wouldn't worry about that too
practice.
Much. Wouldn't worry about it. I'm just telling you. This when Kareem Hunt went on the injury list because of his shoulder, everybody assumed he was injured. He actually wasn't. He was actually in the weight room after the game. And when a player comes back and he has a significant game after being out for a while, kind of like Juju just did, because he really hasn't played for basically a year and a half. He's going to have hamstring tightness. I mean, I'm going to say that hamstring tightness because they want to get him in the room and get him working out. It's a designation. I'm just going to put it that way. Not a lot of people know this, but if you're a wide receiver, you've been out for a year, you come back, you play a game, you have a good game, you're automatically designated as a hamstring or a calf. You may not have that problem, but you're designated. If you're a running back, it's a shoulder. It's part of the NFL. It's part of what they do. It's part of what teams do. He's going to be fine. He'll be full. I guarantee you, probably be full practice tomorrow and Saturday, just like I said Kareem would, and he'll have a hell of a game again. It's just part of what they do. So I wouldn't worry about it. I did hear that it was hamstring tightness. I'm taking that with a grain of salt, but I wouldn't be too concerned with it.
Honestly, I'm not that concerned about it. It's just shocking that when it comes across your feed there.
Oh yeah.
We've talked about this before with how the injury report works, where if you step foot inside of the trainer's room, you end up on the list.
Yep.
And to see something like a soft tissue injury on a guy that hasn't played significant amount of snaps in a long time. Yeah, it's not surprising that he would have something like this, but the fact that he was limited in practice makes me feel better. If he didn't practice at all, I think we'd be having a different conversation here.
Right.
So the fact that he was still able to practice, I feel fine about it. This is definitely something that we're going to keep an eye on. If, on Friday, he, once again, it gets downgraded to he didn't practice, or if this is something that continues to drag out for a few weeks, then, without there being another bye week, then this is something that might come up again. But it doesn't bother me that Juju Smith-Schuster was limited in practice today with a soft tissue injury.
Yeah, I wouldn't be concerned with it. Again, I asked and they said it was just tightness, which that's kind of what they say. And that's really about it. I bet he's full practice tomorrow and Saturday.
The only one that, Chiefs injury report is actually really small, as opposed to the 7 pages of the San Francisco 49ers. But the one that really bothers me is Mike Dana.
Yeah.
He's had a pec injury. This isn't new, but he's been out of practice all week. Obviously we just had the bye week. So this is something that's lingering now for a few weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's torn, but I think it's to the point where they're really letting him rest. And, it may take a few weeks to get completely healed, which that's what they want to do, so it doesn't tear. It just, I wouldn't be too concerned with it. I mean, I know he's probably not going to play Sunday.
Now, if he hasn't practiced up to this point, then Andy Reid doesn't have him play.
But that's okay. I mean, we're in pretty good shape in that position, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But that just gives him time to heal. gives him time to rest and get back to normal and not have to worry about having a tear.
I don't know about, you said that we're pretty good there. I don't know. Defensive edge is kind of a depth weak point for this team. I think that if slash when Mike Dana doesn't play, I think this is a big opportunity for Felix and Udike Uzama. This is going to sort of be his moment, right? Like if if he comes out, and once again falls flat, or just doesn't have a game where he doesn't really do anything, it's like he kind of just showed up. I think that we can start having some conversations about him and moving forward as to what his role is going to be, because you're going to need some help, on that defensive front. And the 49ers have a good offensive line. They have one of the best tackles in the league, right? And we know that Felix is, you know, third on the list of guys that need to be blocked, fourth on the list of guys that need to be blocked on that defensive line when you've got Chris Jones and Karlaftis who are going to get more of the attention. So Felix is going to get a lot of one-on-one opportunities. Um, I know that, and we'll talk about this in a little bit with the 49ers and how their scheme is a lot of run game, quick passes, play action, that sort of stuff. This is going to put a lot of stress on the outside defenders because they're going to have to make choices. Do they bite on the run or do they go after the quarterback? This is not going to be a game where you can just pin your ears back and go after the quarterback. You're going to need to be able to make quick decisions. And if I'm Kyle Shanahan and I expect them to do this, I expect them to pick on whoever is not going to be on Karlaftis' side, right? So you're going to pick on Felix and Udike Uzama, and you're going to pick on him physically, but you're also going to pick on him mentally as to whether or not he's going to be able to diagnose, is that running back bouncing outside, or can I go after the quarterback? And you also have to be able to, stay true to your rush lanes because we know Brock Purdy, well, he's not super athletic. This is a guy that can move out of the pocket too.
Yeah, he'll run. I mean, he'll run with the ball if he has to. He's got a little bit of mobility to him. He kind of reminds me of I'll be honest with you, he kind of reminds me of Brady when it comes to mobility, which was limited his whole career. But that's the only thing he reminds me of Brady of is his mobility. But there's, I mean, a million other quarterbacks that have that
I don't
same.
know. His draft pictures look the same, right?
Well, yeah, that's true. Uh, it's because neither one of them thought they were ever going to be picked or play an NFL game. Um, but I think, I'm not too concerned with FAU being out there this week. They have a lot of injuries on the San Francisco side, a lot of injuries. Christian McCaffrey is not playing in this game. So that's one person we don't have to worry about. He was the one that kind of shredded us in the Super Bowl, if you kind of remember. At least in the first half of the game, he beat us up.
Dude, Jordan Mason, their second running back, may not even play in this game. He's been
Exactly.
on the injury report with a shoulder injury, and he got knocked out of last week's game. Like,
Correct. I just don't. That's why I think. I mean, that's why one of the reasons why I'm not too concerned with FAU being out there. They don't really have. They don't really have it. He said. Bill Phillips says, "Big game for FAU and Karlaftis. They can set the edge limit. A number of times the 49ers reach the perimeter. Our defense should be able to limit the offense's big playability." I agree.
Yeah,
And
let me rephrase my. I'm not concerned about FAU, being. I'm just saying that I think this is his first big game. Like, this is his opportunity to make the coaches recognize that he was worthy of the first round pick and he's worthy. He is an NFL talent, right? Like, I think this is going to be the big game for him. I know he played in the Super Bowl and all that, but this is a very good offense that you're now need to be the guy. Next man up mentality. We're depending on you to be effective now. And the Kansas City has so many other good defensive players that, I don't think that if FAU plays, bad, the Chiefs defense as a whole is good enough to make up for that. But this is an opportunity for him to prove that he is worthy of a starting position or a top rotation piece on that defensive line.
I agree. I mean, I agree with you, Philip. It is important, but right now, again, they don't have. I think they may be really limited in running back room right now. If Mason doesn't play or is extremely limited in that game, I don't know who their third running back is. I don't even know if I know his name, but that's gonna be a huge factor. We've stopped some pretty damn good running backs. Jordan Mason, running back on shoulder, it's unspecified right now, which that's kind of common. Um, we faced some really good running backs this year, and we've stopped them. Derrick Henry was one of them. And if you look at it, Derrick Henry's went on to have some really good games after he played the Chiefs. I think he's averaging like 150 yards a game. It's been kind of insane for a 30-year-old running back to be playing that well, but it was after they played the Chiefs. Nobody has been able to stop a Derrick Henry style running back other than this Chiefs defense. So I'm not really concerned about their running game. Now, here's the thing, and I will agree with Quentin on this. That system, holy shit, you can plug almost anybody into that system, that offensive side of the ball, and they will do well. I mean, he's proven it time and time again. Everybody, I mean, look, Jimmy Garoppolo went to a fucking Super Bowl within that system. So I mean, you always have to watch out for them because Kyle Shanahan just has that system just dialed in.
I mean, last week their third string running back had 10 carries for 99 yards.
Exactly. So that's something that you have to think about. It is. There's no doubt about it. I'm not too concerned because, again, what are they, 3-3 right now, right?
Yeah.
They're 3-3. They're hurting a lot. And you know what? It kind of goes to show you when you're missing your star running back and Christian McCaffrey.
He's the best player on their team.
He absolutely is the best player on their team. When you're missing that guy, it really changes the trajectory of your season, and which it has for them. Mason did well, but he isn't that guy to get you over the hump. They brought everybody into that system, and specifically Christian McCaffrey, to help them get over the hump and help Brock Purdy look like a superstar. Well, he's not there right now. And Brock Purdy's numbers have considerably dropped. I mean, immensely dropped since he's been out. And they've lost games, 3 games. So I'm not too concerned with them. I think this is going to be one of those. I mean, look, every game we played this year has just been a nail biter. We're missing, and it kind of goes to show you, yes, Shanahan has a great system. It's easy to plug and play. It's a plug and play system is what it is. You can take a 7th round kid or an undrafted free agent that really has never played much football, put him in that system, and he's going to look good. Andy's system is totally different, but it's better. And I say that because we're missing 3 wide receivers, a running back. We're 5-0. It's pretty simple to look. I mean, it's the math's there. It's easy to look at it and go, okay, well, wait a minute. Andy's doing something right. Most of it is, I mean, honestly, it's Spags too. Spags is doing a great job. Andy is really, I'm going to say this, and I'm kind of crazy, but I never thought I'd say this about Andy. His time management skills are fucking phenomenal now. Do you remember the days when Andy didn't have the greatest time management?
That was the biggest knock against him.
It was. And now he is like a god when it comes to time management, clock management. He knows how to use that clock. But I think that also is Mahomes and the defense. When you have a defense that you know is going to be able to hold an offense and keep them on the field without calling time or maybe calling their timeouts quickly. I mean, every team we faced this year has used their timeouts early in the game. And then, who was it? The Saints, I think it was. They called their final timeout with like 6 minutes left in the game or 7 minutes left in the game. That's a huge thing. When you have a defense that you can rely on, which Andy hasn't had, think about it, until Spags, and really a year after Spags got here, he didn't have that defense. I mean, they won a Super Bowl with the 27th ranked defense. They went to a Super Bowl with the 24th ranked defense, and they won again with the 17th ranked defense. And then finally, It was now we got the right pieces in place. They know their roles. They know their packages. They know what they're supposed to do. Then they go to the 11th ranked defense and they win without the greatest offense. I mean, and now we're in the same boat. We don't have the greatest offense right now. Mahomes is not looking that great. There's nobody to throw to other than Kelsey. And there's guys out there, and Juju really stepped up, but you can't really just. Look at all the other great offenses. They don't really rely on two wide receivers or a tight end and a wide receiver. They rely on multiple things. Mahomes is using what he's got and getting down the field. The red zone is not. Red zone efficiency has not been great. They're scoring field goals, but they're really not putting touchdowns on the board. So
and really, that has been the biggest problem that the offense has had. Only, followed by the interceptions that Mahomes has had, or just turnovers in general.
Yeah.
But the Chiefs' offense has been very effective in moving the ball down the field, especially when you consider the lack of big playability.
Yep.
They've been able to move the ball down the field. The biggest problem is, and why Kansas City hasn't been able to blow anybody out, or they haven't been able to sit around and win, win convincingly and then just sit back on their defense for, half a quarter as the fourth quarter expires or whatever, is because they just get into what feels like these scraps against teams that they're better than. You're watching the game and you're like, man, Kansas City's winning in all phases of the game, and yet they're only up by 6. They're only up by 10. It just feels like, or they may be down because Kansas City, really struggles on defense on that first drive. So the
that's
team they're
always
facing,
though.
I know,
Yeah.
but you go down, the team will go down, score a touchdown. Kansas City will respond with a field goal, or maybe they won't respond with anything, like what happened in the Chargers game, right?
Yeah.
Where, Kansas City was down 10-0 for more than a quarter.
Yeah.
Like and yet you never felt like Kansas City was out of it, but it's just like you knew that the more and the further and further that game progressed, Kansas City was really outplaying the Chargers. And yet the score didn't really reflect that after the first 2 drives by each team.
Agreed. But you know what I like about it though, Quentin? And I think this is kind of helpful. You know how Andy, he likes that bend don't break kind of thing when you're really up by a lot of points.
Yeah.
We're beating somebody by 21 and it's, late in the third quarter. And he wants to play that prevent defense. If they score, oh well. If they don't, oh well. He don't have that opportunity now. Now the defense is on their toes until the clock strikes. And I like that. I'm glad because that really needed to happen. I love Andy. I think he's the best coach in football. Probably one of the top 3 coaches ever, maybe top 2. But he does have his faults. And one of them is, it used to be clock management. That's fixed. Now I think this is actually fixing him. Last year and this year has helped not only Spags with his defense and those guys not wanting to get lazy towards the end of the game, but it also helped Andy say, wait a minute, we do need to play these games until they end. It doesn't matter if we're up by 21. It doesn't matter if we're up by 14. It doesn't matter if we're up by 30. We need to play the game until the end of the clock, until the clock strikes 0. And that's what I think it's going to help. If anything, it'll help Andy for the next 4 or 5 years while he's coaching. It'll help him not only win more rings, but solidify his legacy as the best coach to coach football ever.
Let me ask you, this is sort of a philosophical question about football and relates to the Chiefs. And I'd like to hear people in the chat what you guys think about this too. You have the best defense, in the league, right? You have the best defense across the board. There's no real weaknesses in it. Would you run your offense as, I have the best defense, so I can afford to take more shots down the field. I can afford to be aggressive. Let's put pressure on the opposing team because I know that my defense, if I make a mistake, they can hold up. Or do you think it's sort of the flip where it's, I can just lean on my defense. I don't need to take big risks because I know that it's not like this game is going to turn into a shootout. So it's okay for me to kick field goals and to play small ball.
Well, I tell you this, I spent a long time on the field with Marty Schottenheimer and all those guys from the 90s. Marty was that guy. Marty was very conservative, run the ball, pound the rock. Marty ball. It is what it is. Some of our wide receivers didn't. We had some of the best talent in the league, and they didn't have 300 yards on the season because he didn't want to throw the ball. He leaned on the defense very heavily. It cost him because it's all about timing and when you do that. If you want to do that, towards the end of the season, okay. If you want to do it in the playoffs, okay. Because that's when you want to take those chances. I would not be conservative in the playoffs, or if I'm going for a playoff run, or the Super Bowl for that matter. I would not be conservative because that cost us every fucking time with Marty. And I loved Marty. He was a great guy, philosophical guy. But he played the same football from week 1 to week 16, or if there was a playoff game, week 17. And everybody knew what we were doing. After watching Andy especially with the Mahomes era, during the Mahomes era, and seeing him play vanilla offenses, the first 5 or 6, 7, 8 weeks of the game, sometimes it was 10 weeks, 12 weeks into the season. And then all of a sudden he would throw a play in here and there. Then I started thinking, okay, well, this is really the right way of doing this because nobody can really get a read on you. They don't know what you have planned. So I think it really depends on the time of the year, what your record looks like. If it's a must-win game, then you can lean on the defense a little bit, but you got to pick and choose when you do that. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, I just think it's an interesting sort of philosophy because I could see it both ways, right? And I think that Andy Reid has, especially since the offensive weapons haven't been there, and the offense has taken a step back from where it was when Patrick Mahomes first came up, because the thought process is, hey, if you have a bad defense, you need to score as many times as you can because
Mhm.
that the other team is also going to score as many times as you can. But when you have a good defense, the thought process is, hey, let's run the ball, let's control the clock, let's, make sure that we can get points on the board, but we don't need to do anything too aggressive. We don't need to put, the ball at risk. We don't need, turnovers because, we know if we put, let's say 24 points on the board, we're fine. We're going to win this game because our defense is that good.
It makes sense. I mean, when Mahomes had to win, when we had the 27th ranked defense, and he had to put up 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards, I really don't know if he actually had to do that, though. I don't know if he actually had to that year. I mean, of course, it helped a whole lot because, it just did. But now looking at it 5 years later, 6 years later, when we do have a top 3 defense in the league, then you can say, okay, you lean on them, but you don't break them. Yeah, with Sutton, you're absolutely right. So you don't want to break your defense either. You have to look at it from both perspectives. Yeah, clock management is great, but if you got your defense out on the field, you know, for 30 minutes of the game or 40 minutes of the game, you're gonna lose a player here and there. You just are. And I know depth is key, but in the same aspect, why would you want to risk a player because you want to lean on your defense so much? See, there's a healthy balance there, and Andy's really got that balance. I think if he really wanted to lean completely on the defense, Mahomes wouldn't have thrown 5 picks this year, or 6 picks, or how many it's been. I just don't think that would have happened because Mahomes has taken chances with a young group of guys and a hampered group of guys, trying to get them acclimated. And that's the one thing, he's selfless when it comes to that. He could be that guy. Exactly. Regular season is practice. I mean, it's kind of how you have to look at it. Mahomes is selfless in that aspect because a lot of guys would say, well, fuck, I'm not throwing that ball. I don't want that interception record. I don't want that ratio. Mahomes doesn't care. If he can get his guys to learn, then he doesn't care if he throws an interception here and there. He knows that he's going to somehow win that game. Not just him, but the defense as well. He knows that they're going to somehow come out on top. He's done it for 2 years now. He's really grown. Oh, how should I say this? Not grown up, but evolved. He's evolved into a totally different quarterback that I thought I would probably never see out of him. I really never thought he would be the guy that is more the teacher than he is the student. But he's teaching these guys, and he's taking chances and being selfless to do it. And that's what makes him so fucking good, man. I'm happy that I'm happy that he's doing as well as he is with the obstacles and everything that he's had to jump through over the last couple of years. It made him grow in so many ways, but it's helped Andy too. I think it's like I said, it's a fine line. You have to make sure you know when to do it. Andy knows when to do it, when to pull out the big plays, when to do certain things that like this, like when Kelsey passes the ball off. He only does it at certain times because eventually they're going to catch on, and somebody's going to be guarding the guy that's running down the field next to him. There's a fine line of when you have to be conservative and when you have to actually just go all out. And you got to weigh everything. Your defensive players, if they're going to be injured, if you're putting too much pressure on the defensive side of the ball, if you're putting too much pressure on Mahomes, if you're just being selfish, they're not doing any of that. They're taking what they have and they're winning with it. You can't ask for more. You really can't ask for more than that. What I hope, Quentin, and people are going to think I'm crazy, I hope we lose a game here and there. And we will. I don't want to go 13-0. And there's a reason behind that. The last team, if you guys remember, the last team that went undefeated with a really mediocre offense was Brady, and he lost. He didn't win. He lost. At the end, he lost. He went 19-0 and lost. I don't want to see that. He went 19-1. I just don't want to see that again. Or 18-1, sorry. I just don't want to be that team. I want to make sure that these guys know, some of these new guys need to know what it feels like to lose. I think Worthy needs to know what it feels like to lose. Right now, he's looking at it like, fuck, man, we can't do no wrong. We cannot do anything wrong. Mahomes throws a pick, oh, well, we win. I fuck up the route, oh, well, we win. Carson Steele is the great example of that. He really needs to know what it feels like to lose. I fumbled 3 times this year in 5 games.
Yeah, he knows how to lose a ball. I'm pretty sure he's good.
Yeah, but I'm saying he needs to know what it feels like, maybe him being out there and then losing a game because he didn't produce or he fucked up. If you remember right, Tyreek Hill's felt that. Kelsey's felt that. Williams felt that when he played for us. Running back Williams, if anybody remembers. Damian Williams. Everybody has to feel that with this team because if you don't, you get too cocky, especially when you're young. Pacheco hasn't felt that yet. He's felt the losses during the season, and that was nice that he did. But he hasn't felt a season where he hasn't went to the Super Bowl. I don't want them not to go to the Super Bowl. I just want these young guys to know what it feels like to actually lose so they can get better. Not to think that they can just Sky Moore it, if that makes any sense. I don't want them to think they can go out there, fuck up, and smile on the sidelines because it's okay. We got Mahomes, we got Andy, we got Spags, we got the defense, we got Chris Jones. We're going to win no matter what because it will cost you in the end. I don't want to see that happen. I want these guys to all feel what it feels like to actually lose a game and be the reason why they lost. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's Sky Moore because he's fucked up numerous times and he's still come out on top. He doesn't know what it feels like to lose yet. That's why he isn't playing well. I'm just being honest. Some of these guys, McCall Hardman went through that. Now he knows what it's like to be cut, tossed to the side, come back, lose, and now he has to actually play the game, even though he's not playing to how he played 5 years ago. He still has to concentrate. He has to put effort in. I don't want these guys to think they don't have to put all the effort in because they do, especially in Andy's system. It's insane. I've had wide receivers tell me that they don't understand the first 2 pages of his playbook. They don't understand it. And these are college graduates that actually got good grades, and they weren't handed grades. They were good at what they were good in college. They were intelligent people, but they didn't understand the playbook. It took them, Demarcus Robinson, he said that. It took him 2 years to figure the playbook out. Demarcus is an extremely intelligent guy, but it took him 2 years to figure it out. And those were basic plays. I want these guys to understand what it feels like to lose. Not the big game, but the little stuff, because that'll make you really want the big stuff. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, moving on. If that makes any sense to you, Quentin?
Yeah. Let's move on to just more. Let's get into some of the specifics about, this matchup. Is there any one player, whether on the 49ers offense or defense, that you really think that the Chiefs should focus on in this matchup?
Brandon Ayuk scares me all the time.
Is that because of his big playability?
Yes. The guy, he's an extremely good route runner, extremely intelligent player. He's fast. And he just knows how to make that play happen. So they really have to hone in on him. If they have anyone other than McDuffie on him, that's a huge mistake, because he's the only one that's held him down. So, other than Snead, and we don't have Snead anymore. So they really have to. He's the one that scares me the most. I mean, I would say it was Christian McCaffrey, but he's not there.
Right. I will say that their wide receiver core, because of injuries and because of Ayuk's holdout to begin the year, I'm not really worried about their wide receiver core. Honestly, for me, is George Kittle. And it's that Kansas City has struggled against tight ends all year. And George Kittle is one of the best tight ends in all of football, as well as Brock Purdy, is one of those guys that he can get the ball out quickly when he's under pressure. And so I think it is a great recipe list, let's say, of how George Kittle is going to get a lot of targets. And if it's anything like the Baltimore game, where a lot of those targets lead to a lot of yards, I think that he could have a very Isaiah likely game. So mine's George Kittle, and I think that if Kansas City doesn't find a way to slow him down, then it's going to be pretty bad.
I can understand where you're coming from. The only thing I would say to that is Kittle has struggled against us ever since he's been in the league. He has really struggled against the Chiefs. Even when we weren't the greatest defense, he struggled against us. I don't know if it's a mental thing. I really don't know what it is. I know we double team the shit out of him when he's on the field. And he somehow, I don't know what it is about him, but he always tends to get hurt in our games. Have you ever noticed that? He's always somehow getting injured during one of our games. He's been in the blue tent probably 3 of the last 5 games we played them. Regular season and Super Bowl. I just think that Kittle can be a great decoy, because you're going to double and triple him. Ayuk's going to get open. So you really have to be. And Justin Reed has to be on his game.
Yep.
He has to be on his game against these guys. He's made me a little bit nervous this year. There's times he looks really good, and there's times he's not. There's times he looks like he's almost lost to a degree. We don't need that. That's kind of what we went through the last year of Tyrann Mathieu's deal with us. Is he was going through something else with the Chiefs, and a player, by the way, and he kind of took it upon himself to be a wad. I don't know what else to say. He did that to some degree on his own. But in the same aspect, we don't need somebody out there that's lost. And Justin Reed sometimes seems to be, yeah. And I talked to him before he was actually not re-signed. I should put it that way. I did talk to him, and it kind of solidified what I was thinking anyway. But he said, I've never even been contacted for a contract, and I know why. I'm not going to spread that all over the place, but I do know why. And he kind of caused it. Some other players kind of caused it, but those players are no longer here. But regardless, I don't want. I just don't want Justin Reed to slack. And he's kind of slacked a few games this year. That's the only thing. He has to be on his game. He has to really keep his eyes open, keep his head on a fucking swivel, and really pay attention to the offense. Because if he doesn't, he's not going to be of any help to anyone. Especially they do have a good wide receiver core, even though they have injuries. Deebo Samuel's probably going to play. You got Brandon Ayuk, you got George Kittle. You got to keep your head on a swivel. Because even though they're running the ball as much as they are right now, if for some reason Mason doesn't play this game and their third string running back comes in, we're expecting them to run the ball. That's what they think. So our secondary has to be on top of it in case Purdy decides to go downfield a few times. They have to really pay attention.
And
Not that they wouldn't, but
this is going to be a big game for the linebackers.
Really is.
Because between George Kittle and then the run game, which we've touched on a couple of times, and I know that they don't have their number one running back, and I know that Mason is injured, but man, like you just keep talking about, we know how dangerous this run scheme is, so we need to have a real look at what is this linebacking core going to do, and I don't care who you put on George Kittle or who you're going to put as the main guy to attack the run game, but those guys need to have their head on a swivel.
Absolutely. You know who I tell you, I'm glad you brought that up because Drew really needs to keep. He's had a couple instances this year where he's overran the play, and he's missed the block. He's missed the tackle because he's overrunning it. You can't do that with Kittle because he's a really good route runner. So you really have to, if you're going to be out there and you're going to be on Kittle, you have to time yourself exactly right. And I know he's an excitable player. He's a guy that if he sees something, he's going to go full bore at it. And for the most part, it's worked for him with us. It actually worked for him with San Diego. But this year, it's kind of hurt him a little bit because there's been 3 instances where he's overran the tackle. And you're right. He's the one that really, out of all the linebackers, Nick Bolton had one bad game. To be honest with you, he had one bad game. And after that, he's been on top of shit. He has been everywhere you need him to be and then some. I don't know who they're going to have on Kittle. I have no idea. I would almost assume it would be Drew Tranquil. But again, it could be Nick Bolton. We just don't know. They could switch off and on. We don't know what they're going to do. The one thing I like about our linebacker core is they play every position. Have you ever noticed that? I love that. I love the fact that you can, you got 1 minute you got a guy in a nickel, next time he's in the Sam. It doesn't really matter because they can all play those positions. So they may switch off and on. Spags is pretty good at doing that. If this guy's not doing so well against him, okay, let's put somebody else there. Or let's just rotate it around so nobody can ever get a beat on the linebacker. And that's a good idea. It's a good scheme. But again, like I said, Tranquil's got to time himself correctly and make sure he's really paying attention. Same with Justin Reed. Justin Reed's overran, and then there's a couple times he just look like, fuck, I don't even know where that guy came from. When you're looking forward, your head's just got to go back and forth, back and forth. You got to keep your eye on what's going on. So, yeah, I agree with you, man. It's going to be an interesting game for our linebackers because they do have some weapons that, between the run game, regardless who's in there because of their scheme, and then their weapons on the outside, their wide receivers and tight ends, those linebackers really have to be on top of it. And we have a great linebacker core. I mean, if you look at all 4 put together, probably best in the league. I don't know of another linebacker core that's just as good. I mean, San Francisco does have Fred Warner, which really he's probably the best in the league. But as a group, I think we're probably the top linebacker core in the league.
Yeah, I would say that it, it's going to be a struggle between the two. And I think there's going to be a lot happening in the middle of the field.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly where it's going to happen, Quentin, is in the middle of the field.
Yeah, whether it's George Kittle, who, he's a tight end, he does really the same thing that Travis Kelce does.
Mm-hmm.
So he plays, in between the numbers. And then the run game for the 49ers, a lot of those inside zones and stuff like that, that's where you can find some open space. So, yeah, the linebackers are going to put under a lot of stress. Is there anybody on the defensive side for the 49ers that you are worried about, or just feel like, the Chiefs need to pay close attention to?
Fred Warner. I'm going to say his name over and over again. If you remember, he was the one that kind of put the Steinmots on a few plays of ours. He's a beast, dude. The guy's just a fucking beast. I can't think of that edge rusher they have. I can't think of his name right now, and I don't know why it's not coming to me. Damn it, I can't think of his name, but he's really good too. But Warner scares me a little bit. He's kind of crazy. He's the guy that everybody really strives to. Bosa, yeah, Bosa. Is Bosa playing this game?
It's early. It's early enough in the year that he shouldn't be hurt.
Okay, he scares me. Bosa and Fred Warner are the two that scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, Bosa is not on the injured list.
Fuck. I hate to be like that, but damn. I mean, he's a beast, man. And he's that guy that the one thing about him is if he gets in anybody's blind spot, no matter what quarterback it is, he's going to hurt them. If he gets penalized or fined, he doesn't really care. Especially when it comes to Mahomes. Because I'm sure he's tired of hearing Mahomes' name at this point. I mean, we're 4-0 against him. 4-0. I'm sure he's a little irritated. So those two guys right there scare me. Travarius Ward, I still to this day love everything he does. I think he's a great all-around corner, but he's not 100%. Oh, shit. Yeah, I didn't. Fuck. Oh, God, I didn't think about that. That just ruined my night. Oh, my God, that ruined my night. It's going to be a long night. It's not going to could be. It's going to be a long night. Taylor is the most expensive fuck up in the league. He's almost, yes, he is.
No.
Dude, he's almost.
Deshaun Watson exists.
Well, I'm talking about defensively. Yeah, Deshaun Watson's a different story. But when it's $20 million a year, and ask Philip. Philip, if you're on here, pull up those stats because I want to say he's pretty much dead last or real close. He's ranked really low on the totem pole in that position. And this is going back to last year. Pressure rate, penalties, sacks allowed.
Yeah, I mean, that was talked about, it's talked about on the broadcast a couple of times where, Taylor has not been a good tackle since he got here. And the problem is that, Kansas City has problem on the left side as well. The strength of this offensive line is guard, center, guard, and that's why you see Kansas City, run down the guts so many times. Yeah. It's because that's where the strength is, and fortunately, we have a quarterback who can get the ball out fast enough and has the arm strength to where he doesn't have to have perfect mechanics in order to be accurate with the football. But yeah, that is definitely a weakness for this team. It's a significant weakness, and they've tried multiple different ways to fix that problem, to solve that problem.
The only way you're going to fix that problem is get him out of that position.
But since Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz left, Kansas City has struggled with their tackle play on both sides.
They have, and it's sad. I mean, Kingsley is actually really good on the right. He's like predominantly a right tackle anyway. I know Veach is that guy. Look, I get it. He has been, and it's for the most part worked. But you have to be really careful when you're talking about Patrick Mahomes. You can't get him injured. Absolutely. They need to
Those
make a
moves aren't being
switch.
made this year, though.
Well, they may have to. Think about it, dude. They may have to. We're lucky that Mahomes is mobile. We're lucky that he does get the ball out quick. We're lucky that he has vision. But at some point, if God forbid anybody else on that line breaks down and Taylor has one of his normal breakdowns, Mahomes can get seriously hurt. They have to make a decision and make that change. That's true too. You know, if Wanye does have an issue or keeps continuing to have issues, I got to give him credit. He's actually done pretty well. There was one game that he gave up 2 pressures, no sacks, the entire game, and he played against a pretty decent defensive player. But then he has his issues here and there. But it's nowhere near as bad as Taylor. Wanye makes nowhere near as much money as Taylor. If it was me, Juwan, I'm sorry, I'm talking about Wanye. Oh yeah, you're right. Juwan's terrible. If I was Andy, I don't know if I'd do it in this game because this is a tough game to do it again, but do it in because of Bosa and everybody else. Kingsley would just get eaten up. You never know. But I would make a change just to see how he'd do. If Taylor has issues during this game, it's time to make a change. It just is because he's had issues with far less players than Bosa. So this is, and I'll say it again, this is the worst signing Veach has ever had. The worst contract he's ever done. People bitched about Frank Clark's contract. Frank Clark helped us win Super Bowls. Juwan Taylor has not. He's just lucky they don't call penalties in the Super Bowl. They don't call holding. They don't call a lot of that shit in the Super Bowl on either team because we probably would have lost. Pretty simple, man. The guy's got 31 penalties since the beginning of last year. That's insane, dude. 20 million. He's a fucking thief. Let's just call a spade a spade. The dude's he's a legal
This
criminal.
is what happens when you fail to draft a player to draft at a spot, right? And then you try and buy your way out of that problem. And this is what it happens, right? Because what happens is that, you know, this isn't Madden, you know, you free agency, there isn't always a solution to your problem, right? You can't go into free agency just like you can't go into the draft and expecting to always find a solution to what you need. And unfortunately for Kansas City, that was the best solution they had to their offensive. Look, Kansas City has had offensive line problems on the outside.
They have.
You know, I mean, it's just factual. And until that they can find long-term solutions in the draft, then this is probably what it's going to be like moving forward. Or, I mean, you know, they got Mitchell Schwartz as a free agent from Cleveland. So let's just hope Cleveland messes up again.
You know, I started thinking about, and you're right. I mean, look, they could have gotten Alt this year. I understand why they didn't do it because they didn't really know where Worthy was going to go at, even though it seemed like everybody other than some of these draft experts thought he was going to go between 20th and 28th in the first round. We all talked and said he'd probably go in the second round. We had it on our draft show, and I said, I think he's going to go in the second round. And he would have if Veach wouldn't have traded down for him. If it would have been me, I would have probably looked at it a little differently and thought, okay, wait a minute. Who can I trade with? If I got to trade in the second round, who can I trade with? I want to get Alt. Alt probably wouldn't be injured right now. Just saying. Probably wouldn't be injured. He's a fucking beast. He plays the game. Just he came out a veteran. He was an absolute beast. But that's a really hard gamble. I know. But I don't think he would be injured right now if he played for the Chiefs. I don't think he would be injured because we don't run the ball. Well, we wouldn't have ran the ball as much. And we have a better medical staff. That's for damn sure. But and we have a better line other than him. I guess that's the big key too. When you have a better line other than one guy, then, you know, it makes it a lot easier on that one guy. He may not be injured, but in the same aspect, it's really hard when you're drafting because it's a gamble either way. Whether you pick somebody up from, there's a reason why Doug Peterson didn't want him back. Just saying. So if you're going and signing a guy for 20 million a year, or you're picking a guy in a draft, you really don't know. It's a gamble either way. I'd probably gamble towards the draft in that position versus paying a guy 20 million a year that's not really done much since he's gotten his contract. And look, I mean, it is what it is. I don't think the refs would be nearly as focused in on him last year if it wasn't for that Jaguars game. Because if you remember, the first thing Peterson said was, watch him, he jumps early. Watch him, he's not lining up correctly. Illegal formation. He did it when he played for me. That got the ball rolling. And then it was just penalty after penalty after penalty. And he's back. I mean, now they're really putting the emphasis on illegal formation this year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's just the NFL, every year comes out with that emphasis. So
yeah, every year it's a different position.
You gotta adjust to it.
Yeah, he didn't adjust last year when they were jacking with him, and then they go ahead and put that emphasis this year, and he hasn't adjusted at all. I don't know what made anybody think they could. Now I understand Veach's position because he's paying a guy $20 million a year. He's got a fat contract. You really can't just say, okay, can somebody take this dickhead off my hands? Because there's not a team out there that would, unless we paid his contract. Veach hates dead cap space. The only thing you can do is pull him out of the starting position and pay him anyway and just be done with it. And eat, have egg on your face. That's all you can really do. And that's what he needs to do. At some point, he's going to have to do that. If this game goes the way we all assume it's going to go for Taylor, it's going to be a rough ride during this game. Thank God we got Kareem Hunt. Thank God. Because he can help to some degree as far as blocking is concerned, but he also allows Mahomes to get the ball out a lot quicker. And when Pacheco comes back, that combo is going to be deadly. No matter how you look at it, that's going to be a deadly combo. And I guarantee you're going to see Kareem out as a wideout more than you'll ever imagine. Wideout out of the backfield. Because you got Pacheco that you know is going to get you 4 or 5 yards a carry, if not more. And then you got Kareem that can do the same thing, but also is a phenomenal pass catcher and can break tackles. That's a deadly combination in the backfield right there. You think about it. If Carson Steele plays his role as a fullback, which that's what he is, and he can wrap both arms around the ball and not try to be the hero, you got your 1-2-3 punch right there. That'll open up a lot of passing with the guys that we have on this in the wide receiver room. Whole lot of passing.
Look, Kareem Hunt's going to be very important to this team moving forward. As long as Pacheco is out, Kareem Hunt's going to be very important because right now he's the only one that can run the ball. Obviously, there's a Carson Steele trust right there. And Kareem Hunt looks like he still has it. And like we just talked about, center guard is the strong point of your offensive line. And that is what you have to trust moving forward. Yeah. And Kareem Hunt, see hole, hit hole, right? He doesn't hesitate. And so he's not going to get you, 12 yards, 12, 15, 8. That's not what he's going to do. But you know what he's going to get you? 3, 4, 5 yards a carry. And that's enough to keep the chains moving. So,
but you know what though, Quentin? When he was with us the first time, who was his secondary player? Damian, right? And Chris Conley. No, I'm sorry, not Chris Conley. Damian and Charkandrick West. He would break those big runs all the time. It's all about the scheme. You get Pacheco back, and you got those two guys in the backfield at the same time, he's going to break some of those big runs. He broke one already this year with us. I think he got like 17, 18 yards with it. He's going to break them. It's all about who your partner in crime is. Right now, he didn't have one. When you really think about it, there's not two guys in the backfield. It's him, Carson Steele, so you got a guy and a half. Because you don't know what Steele's going to do. I think if you get another solid player next to him, he's going to have the opportunity to break some of those big plays. And I bet we see him towards the end of the season. And I bet you anything he's re-signed next year. He's re-signed on a 1 or 2 year deal until he retires. He's going to be the next McKinnon with us. You mark my words. We we would be insane not to bring him back. Even though Pacheco's as good as he is, Kareem adds that extra element that we really need, that a lot of teams have that we don't have. We haven't had since he left, to be honest with you. You said White Tolbert Steele. He said at 29, Hunt defies the belief that running backs can't produce after. Yeah, you're right.
I disagree with that, Philip, just because the reason we have that statement is we mostly refer to that as sort of the tread on the tires type thing. And Hunt doesn't have that same production level because he was here for a couple of years. And then after he left and went to Cleveland, he was a backup to one of the most productive running backs over the last couple of years before
Well,
Nick
that is
Chubb
kind
got
of
hurt.
true. That is kind of
So,
true. But you know another thing too, he's not a traditional running back. I agree with what you're saying, but he's not that guy that take. Well, this game, yeah, the game before, he took a lot of hits. I'm going to say he did. He took a shit ton of hits. But normally, if you looked at how he played with Kansas City the first time, he didn't take a lot of hits. He was able to break the tackles, get out of those tackles, and his vision's so good, and he still has that vision. He's just playing a dual role right now. You get him a partner in crime, they're both in the backfield at the same time. He won't be taking those hits like that.
yeah, I just think that I don't want to make that comparison to, he breaks the narrative of the 30-year-old running back or the
Well,
29-year-old
Derrick
running
Henry
back.
does.
Yes, Derrick Henry does. Like, there are exceptions to the rule. Kareem Hunt is not one of them.
I think he might be. I think he is because of his style of play. I don't think it's so much that he didn't produce or he wasn't played so much in Cleveland because when Chubb went down, he played the entire year. The entire year, he played all last year with a hernia. So I think he's not a old school running back, but nobody is these days. Other than Derrick Henry, he's really the only old school running back that's left. Most of them are wide out. They got protection. They they play a little different than they used to. They're not used first, second, third down, and then you pass, or first, second down, you pass on third, or sometimes first, second, and third down. Henry's not even used that much. I think that's why you're getting the longevity out of running backs that you didn't used to get. I mean, Barry Word, Christian Okoye, they were beat to death. Those were the guys that, and a lot of running backs back in those days, not just those two, because everybody that played for Marty was beat to death. It just is what it is. But most coaches were that way. John Harbaugh, or I'm sorry, which one is it? Jim? John Harbaugh is a running backs coach. He's the guy that wants to pound the ball 24/7. He doesn't like to pass very much. That old school style of running back that used to get maybe 2 to 3 years in the league before they started to fall off are kind of gone. Now you get guys like, Kareem Hunt's a good example. Derrick Henry, the dude from New York, what's his name? That left New York. Now he's with the Eagles. Why can't I think of his name? Saquon Barkley. Barkley got injured because he was pounding the ball so much, but then when he came back, it kind of evolved. He's not that hardcore running back every first, second, third down, constantly running the ball. That's true. Jerry Jones could have had either one of them, and he's got shit. But now I think the running back role has changed so much over the last really 5 to 10 years that now we have players that can get to their 30s, early 30s, and still be productive. I mean, hell, as much hell and as many injuries as Jerick McKinnon had, he was still very productive that second to last year he played. Very productive. Set the record for touchdowns, receiving touchdowns. I think it's all in how you use them. And the fact that it's an air attack game now, and it has been since really for the last 8-10 years, it's really, really evolved into that. I think running backs are lasting a lot longer than they used to. I mean, I remember when his knee first got taken out, my Mike Atwater, I'll never forget that. He was never the same after that. but his knees were already beat to death. I mean, Andy never, or Marty never stopped using him. If he was upright, he got the ball in his hand. Very word, same way. If he was upright, he got the ball in his hand. Even if you look at Jamal Charles, he was really good. He played 10 years. That's a long time for a running back. Comparative to what went on in, between 1990 and really 2008, 2009. Most running backs didn't get that kind of time. So I can understand where he's coming from when it comes to that, because running backs aren't the same. But in the same aspect, I see where you're coming from, because he really didn't get a lot of wear and tear for a year and a half, 2 years. But then he got it. He said, "Are the Chiefs still looking for a wide receiver?"
Yes.
Yes, they are. Now, whether they'll get one or not, that's a different story. I'm just telling you, if they get somebody, it may not be who everybody wants. There is one that, and I'm not going to say his name on air, but they've been working on for a while now. If they did get him, that would be pretty impressive. I'll just say impressive, because it's right now, if there's a hint of them going after anyone at all, every AFC team in the league will sign them, and they will give up the farm for them, because God forbid. And this has been going on for a long time, but especially after a back-to-back and going for a three-peat, nobody wants us to get any better. They want to see the downfall right now. There's not a GM out there that doesn't want to see us have a downfall, especially in the AFC. I think there's some NFC teams like the 49ers and the Eagles. They would love to see us fall on our ass. I'm just telling you, just like I said before, when it came to Amari Cooper, as soon as that shit leaked, who went after him? Because 2 reasons. Yes, they were struggling a little bit on the wide receiver room, but they didn't absolutely have to go get Amari Cooper. It was a cheap deal. They stole him from the Chiefs. They made themselves better. And in their minds, we don't look that great because we weren't able to pick him up. And they know he would have been a great fit in this offense. They all know that. He would have been a really good fit. The Bills especially knew it. And after the fleecing they got with Worthy, and Keon Coleman hasn't really shown up like they thought he was going to show up, and all the shit that they've taken over the years, that we fleeced him since, honestly, Patrick Mahomes. So we knew that was coming. I said it in our chat. I said it on the show. Don't be surprised if somebody else doesn't go sign him. I had a feeling it might be the Bills, but and Philip's got a point. Every time Josh Allen has a quote unquote number one wide receiver, he's a pick machine, because he targets that one guy all constantly over and over and over again. He may end up being, it may go back to what it was before. He's got the most picks thrown since 2018 anyway. It may go back to that again, because he may start targeting him constantly. And usually with him, it starts week 1. So, when Diggs was there, that's all he did was throw picks. They got a really good tight end. Dalton Kincaid is a phenomenal tight end. Wish we had him. I wish he would have been in the room with Kelsey. But Allen still threw a lot of picks last year. He didn't win a Super Bowl last year. He didn't win the AFC Championship game last year. He didn't get to the AFC Championship game last year. And really, he's right. Dawson Knox is good too. So he just has a thing about being the hero. And he's never really gotten rid of that mindset. He said he was going to get rid of it last year. Does anybody remember that press conference? I got to stop doing that. I'm going to stop doing that. I'm not going to play hero ball anymore. I got to quit thinking about that and just really read the defenses. Take what they give me. He threw a shit ton of picks last year. And I think with another weapon on his team, he might end up being the same way. I think Philip's right on that. We'll just have to see how that plays out. Unless this little taste of, of winning a little bit with less maybe teaches him something. Right now, I'm surprised he still didn't have a headache after that concussion he had. Is what it is. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But yeah, to answer your question, they are definitely looking. I just don't know how easy it's going to be to obtain somebody that everybody wants. There's one player out there that I think Will be a really good fit if we can get him. And I know they've talked to that team, but if it gets out at all that the Chiefs have talked to this team about this particular player, I promise you he will be gone to somewhere else. They will give up everything just to keep us from getting him. Kind of is what it is. That's, it's great to be hated, I guess, because you're the best. But it really comes at a price too sometimes when you're in situations like this. But that's about all I got to say about that. What do you think, Quentin?
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are going to acquire a wide receiver, right? And it's not going to be an Amari Cooper type like the Bills did. There's not one of those on the market. I think the guy that I keep coming back to from the Giants. I know some people want the one from Carolina. I don't agree with that. That Amari Cooper. I think the Amari Cooper trade is more significant than the Devontae Adams trade. I think that the Jets.
Well, the Jets gave up the world for him.
The Jets are they're a failing franchise. They're a dysfunctional franchise. That's not going to make a difference. I think the Amari Cooper trade is actually very significant.
In the regular season, I agree with you.
Yeah, so I really wish that Kansas City, even if it was for the exact same price, Kansas City would have got Amari Cooper. But it seems like Deontay Johnson is, more the market Kansas City is going to be in.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Now,
hey, Philip, I've been talking about Slayton for a month now.
Yeah, he'd be a great pickup.
That's the one from the Giants.
From the Giants. But you know what? Don't be surprised if an old face comes back. And I'm not talking about don't everybody freak out. I'm not talking about Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, MVS.
MVS might be back.
Yeah,
I've heard his name thrown around in a couple of circles.
I know, and I despise that.
Yep. I wanted, to be honest with you, I would have much rather have Demarcus Robinson back if we're going to go that route. But he's not going to be available. It's just not going to happen. The Rams will not get rid of him. Yuck, 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 huh? They're not going to give him up right now. Not with their two best wide receivers sitting on an injury report. It's not going to happen. So they're going to, if they make a move, which I'm sure they will at some point, it's not going to be for anybody that, I don't think it's going to be for anybody that, how should I say this? It's not going to, everybody keeps throwing around, what's his name from the Texans? And it's not going to be him. It's not going to be anybody like him. And really, Veach doesn't want anybody like him. Amari Cooper is a very humble guy, keeps his mouth shut, goes out and plays the game. That's what he does. No, who am I talking about? The one that we used to play for Arizona. DeAndre Hopkins. Not going to be anybody like that. His name's been brought up. His name's been brought up more in the last 2 seasons. More than it was when we were actually looking at him for a trade. Now they act like once he got a contract, we could just go pick him up again. We can't. His contract is too big. He's 31 years old now. Almost 32, might be 32 now. Why would you want to pick up that much money for a 32-year-old wide receiver? I wouldn't want to do it. And plus, I've heard other things that he's a little bit, I guess, a little diva. So I think, guys, everybody's got to lower their expectations on, injury that needs surgery, possibly. Absolutely. I think everybody's got to lower their expectations on who they pick up, because we don't have to have, the beauty of this whole thing is that we don't have to have a top number one in everybody's mind wide receiver to win football games. We have proven that over and over and over again since Tyreek Hill left. We need serviceable players that will catch a football and run with it. That's what we need. A body on the field to a degree. And I hate to say it that way, but that's kind of what we need. Kind of is what it is. And why would we, I guess the whole thing is, you got Rashee Rice, you got Brown, which they will re-sign next year. and you've got Worthy. Why would we go out and sign somebody on a bigger contract when we've got those guys on minimal contracts that will be back next year? There's no point in giving up the farm in desperation mode, kind of like what the Jets did for Devontae Adams. Here, you know what? I'll give you part ownership in my team. Just let Devontae Adams. We suck. We are so bad. I'm going to give you minority ownership in my team. Just let him come over here. Because that's basically what they did. They took every bit of that load, every fucking dollar of that money they're paying in a desperation move. We're not in that position. We don't need to give up everything in desperation. The Bills kind of did in two ways. They needed a wide receiver to a degree, a better wide receiver than somebody that's serviceable, and yet they also wanted to keep the Chiefs from getting somebody that was really good. We don't need that. We need bodies on the field that can catch a football and run with it.
And stay healthy.
And stay healthy. That's all we need. And we actually have a couple of those guys. We just have to decide whether it's worth giving up a bunch of money, draft capital, to acquire someone else, or use the guys that we have that are serviceable that we can put on the field. That's what Veach is trying to figure out right now. I guarantee it. What you have right now in the 53, what you have on the practice squad versus somebody else that's going to come in here, not know the system, and pay a shit ton of money to and lose draft capital over it. That's what he's trying to figure out. This San Francisco game is going to be a big test to that. If there's something doesn't go the way it should in this game or gets worse, then you'll probably see something happen a little quicker. If it goes well, you may not see anything happen till, in true Veach fashion, till the last day, last 3 days. He may go after somebody. But it's all going to depend on what happens after this weekend. That being said, I don't know what else we got, Quentin.
That's it. Chiefs play on Sunday against the NFC opponent. Chiefs are 4-0 over the last 4 meetings against the 49ers, including 2 Super Bowls. Andy Reid is 21-4 off a bye. You know, things are looking pretty good for Kansas City.
Looking really good. And he's a beast off the bye. There's no doubt about that. All right, guys. Well, we will talk to you again on Sunday after the game. Hopefully it'll be good news. I'm sure it will be. But until then, peace out, everybody.